Hi,
For the
Nicole.
Hey Richard, how are you? In the summer semester, before the summer semester, I sat on Zoom with you and I said, "Hey, do you want to teach on Clubhouse with me?" And he said, I don't know, I'll get back to you." But you
What
did.
is Clubhouse anyway? I probably
He
said.
came back the next week and said, "I didn't know what Clubhouse was." But we did go on Clubhouse. What was your experience like teaching on Clubhouse the first time?
Yeah, Clubhouse is one of those things where you think this is never going to work. And then it works. And you think, wow, that was amazing. How come that worked so well? And I don't have a really good answer for why it worked so well. I think the audio quality was great. The moderator, Nicole, was great. The students really kind of gave over to it or something. There was something about the times, of course, the COVID times. Clubhouse is kind of an app of COVID. But I think long term, and I know you're writing about this in your research, Nicole, this may be a very good way to teach because it's kind of like what we do, especially in a seminar, people talk and they have a conversation and they use their voices and not their text messages, and they don't, not PowerPoints and things like that. So I think Clubhouse, by going to the natural thing that people do, especially in teaching, but in all kinds of things, is the audio conversation. So audio social is very human, and it just worked great.
I think it takes us back to the beginning of universities when there
Yes.
actually wasn't a lot of text or written. There's this beautiful historical trajectory coming through, and I think that's why it works so well, because the university, the ivory tower, has always existed with voice, and this medium just allows that to continue on.
Yeah.
Now we went, because Clubhouse wasn't really accessible. It's very different now than it was when we were first teaching. There was no Android app. There was no ability to get people on. I think I signed up every person by phone number, person by person by person. It was very elite, like elitist system. And there were loads of other problems with it. So we started with Twitter Spaces, which had launched, but was at least accessible. How was your experience going from Twitter Spaces to Clubhouse? Because I hated being on Twitter Spaces compared to Clubhouse in retrospect.
Yeah, I mean, one of the simple things is that, yeah, it was very difficult, especially for you, because you had to do almost all of that. Talking about multitasking, you were mostly doing three things at once, if not more, solving people's problems and trying to keep the conversation going, and. But the quality of the audio was very good, and the app seemed to be friendly enough that people were willing to put up with a few glitches. And it was fun in a way because it improved every single week. So people got to see this evolution of how things change, which is a very, internet age, social media age, where the apps are in kind of public beta and you get to try it and give feedback, and hopefully it improves while you're using it.
We're even seeing that in the fall semester, where every week something is changing. We have sound clipping now. Soon we will have the ability for replays. It's really, really interesting. One of the things that we did to navigate being on audio, but without being able to see people, was we used WhatsApp as a back channel. What was that like for you?
Yeah, because we'd already been using WhatsApp, and the students were all very familiar with it. And it has a really good, you can actually have an app on your laptop as well as on your phone. And of course, Clubhouse doesn't have a chat room. So having a back channel to the social worked quite well. And again, I think this is not uncommon, especially in young people's day-to-day lives, as you're, at a coffee shop or a bar or whatever, if you're allowed to go to bars. I guess someday soon we'll be out without our masks on. Anyway, when people are out and about, they're also texting. And so the idea of a back channel worked for people, and it let us distribute, icons, graphics, web links, clarify things when people had, questions. I think you used it to keep the, speakers list going, stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know that it would have been as good if Clubhouse had its own text channel, because it would have, there would have been too much back and forth. So having it as a separate thing helped. in my view.
Yes. And what Richard said is that the Clubhouse doesn't have a back channel. What he meant is when we were doing this, it didn't have a back channel.
That's right.
It does now.
Now they do.
Things change very quickly, but we're still using WhatsApp. And the reason is exactly that. It functions much better. And I like that we can layer the apps over each other. And the big reason we opted to do this was because of this idea of teaching mobile on a mobile device. And I loved that idea of that experience of using the mobile phone. I think it's a really productive tool for teaching and learning. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, and especially with the transition for many people to earbuds or headphones. So your phone doesn't need to be up here where you can't see what's going on. It's in front of you. And for that matter, you know, if people don't have earbuds or headphones, they'll just use the speaker function. So more and more people hold their phone in front of their face. So then having texts coming in or other things is quite not, you know, it's not only feasible, it's actually a good experience. So I think that just makes things that more possible and likely for us.
Yeah, I think the phone interface is actually what made it a good experience, because the ability to swipe up and allow Clubhouse to exist in the background and have things going over top of each other, if that couldn't exist, which it wouldn't have with other generations of phones.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
Yeah.
you're really looking at the last 2 or 3 years, well, maybe since iPhone X or something, but, high resolution, faster processor, LTE and above connections. The whole thing, the phone is very much able to keep up with a multitasking environment, which, is certainly not that common before, say, 5 years ago.
You haven't seen the data from the class yet, but I have looked at quite a bit of it. And one of the big things that the students said is that they thought that how we taught mobile on mobile allowed better connection between us and them. Mm-hmm. And they said it built a better community. And they said that the way we used the different applications, it blurred the boundaries between formal and informal learning spaces, which made them feel more comfortable in the classroom, which I think is really, really interesting. And a number of them said that they preferred this hands down to Zoom, because with Zoom, there was just that extra pressure of having the face. Yeah. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about this is because we were teaching in public. The public was literally in our class. The only reason we could do that safely, and I think some ways safer than Zoom, is because of the baked-in moderator model that Clubhouse has. I felt safe to bring people up because I could very easily bring them out, report them, kick them out, block them. Without those moderator tools, I don't know that you could have this kind of environment. In that way, something like Clubhouse actually becomes more safe than something like Zoom, where people can Zoom bomb at any given time and there's no built-in moderation model. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've never really had any problem even with Zoom, although you hear about it. Mm-hmm. But I think if you are going to go public, and it strikes me that if we're in the business of education, public education, then we should at least be open to the idea of having an open or more open classroom. Mm-hmm. And in theory, the way the university works is you could walk around the halls and step into a classroom, and it might be a little awkward if you're just sort of a very random person, but in the right circumstances, a professor that was willing to take that on could do that. And that would be, just something that we should be open to the idea of. And I think, on a smaller scale, you've been inviting some of our past students to be part of this year's class. And even that they want to do that, let alone that they can do that. But again, I think this is a kind of seamlessness and integration with people's lives that, not only is it feasible, but people actually enjoy it and want to have that.
So I had a student at the beginning of this semester who said they attended our Clubhouse classes in the summer, and that's why they signed up for fall.
So they were there in secret.
They weren't there in secret. They were allowed to be there.
Right.
But so they came because they got to test it out. And I had that same experience, except I used to go to different classrooms. Exactly what you were just saying. So same idea. And some of the students are just showing up from our summer class. I'm not even inviting them. They're just popping in. So that's also really fun.
Well, that's one of the neat affordances of Clubhouse is that once you've joined a group and they know you, then if they open the app, they're going to see, oh, Nicole's got a class. Like I got that little note, and now I have a reminder on my phone to join you on Monday night. And so you could eventually have people, dropping in, and people who've been in your class before are not going to be disruptive. They're going to be a positive influence. So I think it's all good.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for discussing this, and we'll see you on Clubhouse.
See you later.